Hey,
Hey,
I see. I'm seeing a problem on the web right now. Someone ask a question. I think we should fix it. What do you think?
we
Okay, we have to do this. So let's do a sip together. On my mark, one, two.
go. I'm
No, no, I
picturing
sip a
like
sip
the
a sip of something.
oh sip.
Okay,
Sorry.
3, 2, 1. Let's do it. Okay, let's get ready. Good. So Michael Johnson, that's a great name. Feel like a prime minister or something.
Totally.
So when performing a bulk edit on a table, bulk edit on the table. Am I exciting you?
Yep.
How should changing the filter on the table affect previous selections? Oh, if a user wants to bulk edit a table and make some row selection, yeah, then change the filter
Mm.
during selection. Should row that have been previously selected still are? Hmm. Let's go on whimsical lens. Let's wireframe something.
Yeah.
What's the problem you think? What's the real problem here?
Um, to distill it a little, I mean, it is pretty concise what the issue is, but I mean, it's a workflow. It's like a scenario-based problem. It's a complex interaction problem. Um, I think that the underlying problem that they're trying to solve
Hmm.
here is how should the logic work related to filters and selection. I think that's kind of what the actual problem is that we're trying to solve.
So
Does that make sense to you?
how would you say that? Um, can you repeat it? Maybe I
Well,
forgot.
okay. So I think what the potential weird case that they're trying to deal with is if, say, you have a really big data set, you're putting a bunch of filters in, but you're also doing selection
Hmm.
alongside of filtering down your list. So the question there is, I think, is the um, should filters affect what you're allowed to select in addition to what you're allowed to see? Is there a relationship between those things?
Effect. Huh. Um, I'm not sure. Can I argue? Can I?
Of course. I mean, I'm just sort of like reading into it because I'm like, oh, it's just like this weird case
Sure.
where when you can't see what you've selected anymore because you filtered more stuff, should those things not be selected anymore?
That's that
That's
that,
sort
that
of
that's
what
a
I,
problem.
yeah.
If I don't see my selection, is it still selected? That's a real problem. In fact, I select something. Now
Yeah.
I showing and hiding stuff. Is my selection is still selected?
I think so, yeah. So that's why I was saying like the
Mm.
filter should the filters affect the ability to select or not? Like how does the logic actually work?
So it could be
Um
filter, soldering, multi pages also. If I'm selecting something on page 3 and I don't see, my previous selection, how do I know? That's I think one thing. One problem is what did I select?
yeah, that is yeah. Yeah, that's part of it for sure.
I selected, and what did I selected? And now can I apply or do something or do a bulk action? So even if it's not selected. Um, okay, so the problem is going from the source of the problem is you have a big data set, you're selecting a bunch of things, and then you want to perform something after or live. Okay, good. I think it's clear. I think it's clear. So the
Yeah.
table is classic. Okay. So any ideas? There's something about
Yeah.
what did I selected that we need to figure out. How many you selected in general. So
Yes.
not relying only on the checkbox on the first cell of a data table. That's I think is interesting. And I know Megan and you did something like what it's called. It's a box at the bottom of the screen that is always there. What's it called again?
Toast.
Is it a toast? But is it
Oh, it's not
permanent?
always there.
Yeah. What's the name again?
I mean, I would just
Sort of call it an action bar, maybe.
an action bar. Oh, an action bar.
Hmm.
That's great. Let's build an action bar.
So I was just curious, like how this might work in like another pattern. So I opened up my Gmail and I selected one thing on one page and then went to another thing on another page. But it doesn't actually summarize the fact that I have two things selected.
Strange.
But it did at some point. But they did a redesign relatively recently on the G Suite version, at least. So
okay. I shared you the whimsical link on the chat, by the way. I forgot.
okay.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange, yeah, that they don't have this. It's true. It's true. That's true. What should we do about it? Why do you think they removed the selections, the action bar? This like I don't know how to call it.
I'm not sure. That live feedback was, I remember taking screenshots of it a few months ago and being like, oh, this is actually interesting, because what they had was like they still do have kind of an action bar at the top that once you start doing selections, it's there. But they don't actually reiterate what you're doing stuff to, which is not great.
I'm saying something in Google. Let me copy paste it here. It's something like that. All 305 conversation in the box are selected. So they had something like that before. So you're saying that they don't?
It was a select all situation. I was just selecting like sporadic ones, which is, I think, a bit of a different vibe.
It's true.
Yeah. So.
So select all. You may have something, but select.
Yeah, that's probably what I was thinking about. Yeah.
But still a good pattern, that, right?
Yeah, I think it's pretty strong, especially with the select all. Maybe I don't know what the rationale could be, but I'd imagine maybe it's less of a big deal or less likely that you'd forget what you did.
Okay. So let's do an action bar just for fun, because why not? So the text could be, you selected 9 items, maybe 9 items, that's for sure. Wow, I don't know how to write anymore. And the good thing about an action bar is, well, what about putting some action here? Action 1. And like Gmail did, maybe just a link saying clear all on select. What would be the micro copy here?
Okay, you selected 9 items. Yeah, you could do like a clear all. I would think, probably. I guess what's maybe even a deeper question is,
I love deep questions.
We were actually discussing this, like
this idea of maintaining
context and how long, like in a given session of work that somebody's doing, how much context do you actually keep? So we were actually having a conversation earlier today about breadcrumbs, because you go forward in these breadcrumbs, and if you go backwards, oftentimes that forward direction, you kind of revert back to something earlier, and then you lose that forward direction. You lose that context because you're effectively starting a new branch or starting a new path.
I see what you mean.
So this just makes me think of that same kind of concept, because do you make the assumption that this is a continuous workflow that's happening, where you're searching for things and you're selecting and you're searching and you're selecting, and you're getting this big batch of stuff based on various criteria. So you're trying to do it all in a batch action or workflow. Or do you assume that when somebody applies another filter, effectively you're going back to zero and you're starting again. So it's a bit of like a workflow question. Like, do you keep if more filters are applied, do you maintain that selection, maintain that context, or do you assume that that is a signal that you're starting again on something?
Interesting. There's multiple ways to achieve it. We can say, start something, start a workflow. You click on something, and now you're starting something, and now you can filter, select, unselect, and just say, I'm done with this. Now do something about it. So this is a classic. Let's go, intentionally in a workflow. And the other one is I'm viewing stuff. Now I want to do it because I want to, do something on the fly. Oh, I see what you mean. There's a big difference in here. Is it an actual workflow or doing something on the fly? And if I'm changing the filter, maybe I change my intention.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Maybe you don't. At least giving, the feedback, maintaining the context is kind of important somehow, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So maintaining the context is crucial. So what type of component we could use to maintain context? An action bar is one. What else?
You could take a few approaches actually. If you're really creating something where your priority is to really show that selection, have another way to view it, that would be a pretty strong approach potentially.
Like,
so I'm just gonna try, just throw it out there. Like say for example, we're thinking about email sort of vibe. If we had,
I see where you're going. So you're using tabs between states, and now you create a selecting state.
Yeah, something where, because like if this pile of stuff that you're making is really important, you're not just looking through things in order to delete them. You're, say for example, you have a product where you're doing a reorganization of a company or something, and you're looking for employees that all fit a certain criteria, and then another criteria, like there's multiple sort of criteria sets that you're trying to kind of make a batch of people or a group of people out of.
I see it. I see. I see that as kind of a cart behavior. You're adding stuff into a cart or a state
totally.
or something like that.
Yeah.
So that would be great to just, you're selecting, you're browsing, you're shopping, whatever you're doing, and you're adding stuff somewhere where the somewhere now you can do something with it. But feel like the beginning of a workflow is just, without the first step, that is, I'm actually doing something.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm telling you, I'm doing something now. Here we go. Rather than just starting to do it. Because with the table view, as we've seen, people use them in super different ways.
Yeah, because with this, I'm sorry, so here the good thing is you can have multiple action for your selection, whatever you're selecting, but you do have another state. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, so you can combine multiple action with your checkbox and adding to a new state. It's kind of new, this kind of pattern. Did you saw that somewhere else? In enterprise UX, meaning adding stuff to sandbox somehow to actually do something without entering a workflow?
I've seen it once.
Yeah.
On a product where you kind of put people into a pile or objects. You like sort of put them into like this temporary space where it's like, I'm going to deal with this stuff at some point. In that case, though, they were making different types of piles, I think.
Starting to be a little bit more complex.
Starting to be a bit complex, yeah. But
and we can drag and drop things. And
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about drag and drop actually.
Is it because you're writing an article about dragging and dropping?
I am. Yes, it probably is because of that. I've only written 3,500 words on it.
So if you want to stay in the loop, go to pencilandpaper.io, subscribe to newsletter, and you'll have an article about it very soon, maybe next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Good.
yes, yes.
But drag and dropping feel a little bit more complex. Adding something into to feel like features, scope creep here. We're adding stuff where
this is what we're like, okay, how are we going to make this into a workflow based thing? Is basically what we're doing. I feel like.
But I'm sorry. Go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, in a simpler context. So say you didn't actually need the columns and all of the metadata about the thing. And so it's just, whatever. Maybe you could actually reiterate somehow the 9 items. Like if you used actually a component that had some vertical space, you could show the actual things.
What do you mean by showing actual thing? How would you do that?
So for example, say you have like a side panel type of component where you want to be super transparent about the selections. Once you select more than one thing, perhaps. I
see.
We could potentially take a structure somewhat like that, where you then have them listed out. So thing. Or, alternatively, you could have this exposed when you click on it. Yeah, like you're saying here. And then you could actually deselect in this kind of pile that you've created.
That's great. Yeah, you can deselect here. So it's like a summary of what you selected. I love it when you're selecting something. So you can, it's a side panel that you can open or not. It's up to you. All the action can be there also. So if you have multiple action, why not? You can cancel that. You can clear them. Same thing here. So you're just repeating the same thing. But here you may be just, giving, maybe what's the a combo action button maybe with the main action could be, what bulk it did something. And you click on the drop down and you have all the other actions. But here they all, in interface. I see what you mean. And all the summary. And would you be able to change the selection? Sorry, here.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe. Yeah. Because if you can't necessarily see it here, then it just makes it super transparent. That it is the thing. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, so it's a little bit scope creep what we're doing, but the goal is to, it's gonna sound bad.
Well, like it's kind of, if you do have a situation where the data set is so dense and it's actually a lot of work to filter stuff, and it's a lot of work to identify things that you want to select, it's not like, users just lost one little click of effort. It's like, actually, they lost a lot of brain power if you don't just allow them to continue their workflow. So in that sort of situation, it's like, it's fair to actually reiterate what you're doing. And then on the kind of furthermore, because I'm getting going, this is really fundamental to expressing system status, which is a key heuristic that we know of, right? So being super specific about the fact that you have selected these 9 items, now it's 10, now it's 11, and what those items are, that's really basic sort of system status stuff. When I was just doing this little exercise going through between pages and selecting things, the reason why it was a problem was because I don't know how many things I selected. I have no confirmation state my system is actually in. So
It's kind of important also when you have more than a data table. When you have a side panel, when you click and you can have, cards, and you can switch between tables and cards. When you click,
Oh,
you have a
totally.
model. When you have, a slide panel that take full screen. If you do something and you close and you go down, back where you were, so you're adding layers of information and you go back, you don't want to lose everything because you
Yeah.
just click on something.
Yeah, that's a super good point, Benoit, because it's like what you're describing, those are viewing options, or figuring out like what the layout of the page is. And you can argue that filters follow that same logic. It's just showing you different stuff.
Yeah.
So if you kind of categorize those two things as the same type of thing, then for sure, if you went between a table view to a card view or did a little switcher and it just lost it every time, you would think this software sucks. I would assume.
Okay. How would you capture this intent, this rationale?
Like, to summarize what our solution is, kind of thing.
Well, just this aspect of different viewing option, not losing your.
Yeah, I guess I would kind of say, because filtering is a viewing option, erasing context is a bad user experience. Could be a bad user experience. Erasing context is erasing work, and significant amount of work.
Erasing context is how we say that? Erasing context can cost a lot to your user. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Has a user cost.
Has a user cost.
Of like work and mental energy or something.
Oh, maintaining context during filtering page and multi-pages, that's another rationale that we have. Express status system status. Yeah. If we said something to the system, it would be fun to know what we said. Yeah. What's the original again for the side panel? I love it, but
yeah, I mean,
feature?
if you took that approach, it just has a lot of vertical space. If you use a vertical component of some kind, so you could actually just show all of the things live rather than hiding them and then exposing them. So there's probably downsides and upsides to each approach, depending on the amount of real estate that you have. But, even if you take more of a vertical approach or a horizontal approach, you'll have to express what those items actually are, especially if they're out of view. So it's kind of the timing or the rhythm of that's kind
Got
of.
it.
Yeah.
Is there something about the how critical is the action, or how much data you're selecting? If you're selecting just 10, 20 items, it's good. But if you're selecting, a lot of items and you have to do.
Yeah.
Is
That's a super good point. Yeah, because if you're actually selecting, a bunch of items and then the operation that you do on them is a big deal. It makes sense to me in the case where the stakes are high to have as much reinforcement of what you're doing as you're doing it and before you execute the action. So if you took the vertical approach, that's like, it really reinforces what you just did. Like, there's redundancy there, right? Click it here, it's here. It's here. Like, you have a constant.
So maybe that would be
like a good way to figure out how much on the action and how much real estate you want to give it.
So there's multiple ways to do that. It could be a side panel, it could be, a button with, selected with the number, you click on it. You do have, a side panel or a modal, whatever it is. What are you sure that you want to go on with this? And it's not just a summary. It could be, interactive in summary. So an interactive summary. So you can also deselect things here. Okay. Okay, but just this, it's good enough. It's not that costly to implement, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, toasts. I think of toasts as like
Dun, dun.
cheap,
Or
cheap,
even,
but
on the top of a
yeah,
table, just that, just this. This is minimal. It's very easy to do. It's
yeah,
like 9 items, and that's it. Even the action board, you don't have to do it. It can be a nightmare if you're in a small screen and all. So at least something on top. And if not, you can put an action bar. So let's
yeah. Because
keep all the
also, you
variants.
will be communicating if this interface um, has a lot of communication in it. You'll also be communicating what filters are active as well. So you'll have a couple of spots on your UI where you're like, this is what's selected, and these are things that are filtered as well, which we talk about a lot in our filters article.
Do we have a filter article?
Oh, yes, we do. We do. Yeah.
Good.
Deep dive.
Yeah. And it's very useful even for us. Sometimes we just go back and read it again just to make sure.
What did I used to know about this? Oh, there's a nice primer.
So how about doing a summary of everything?
Okay.
So we had a good problem from Michael Johnson on UX Stack Exchange. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm. So Michael was struggling on how to deal with a situation where you have basically a multi-selection or bulk editing happening, and the user might be applying multiple filters or sets of filters throughout the process.
So the problem is that we said that, well, if I don't see my selection, is it still selected? And what did I selected? I think that was mostly the problem. And what was our solution?
So our minimal solution is, at the very minimum, we want to be able to reiterate how many things are selected, tell people what the status of the system actually is right now. And so we explored a couple of different ways to do this, but this first one was the most minimal in terms of like UI that you would need. We also thought about, the bonus situation where you actually want to reiterate not only the total of items selected, but context around those items. So in this case, we showed on the right side, we showed like the actual name of the thing that you selected. And so it's kind of live updating and reinforcing what you just did, like with a bit of redundancy. But the idea there is that could be more relevant for when the stakes are higher, what you're doing.
Well said. Thank you, Kira. It was a fun little problem that I think we fixed it. Let's hope that Michael, let's hope that it will be useful for you. If you have any problem like that, of course, just leave a comment, go on the website, contact us, join, connect with us, and we'll try to, geek around your problem. Just submit it somehow, and we'll work on it for free every week. We're doing that every week live. Yeah. So
yeah,
thank you again, Kira.
We can even do another session with more information.
Oh yeah, Michael, we'd love to see you. Be a guest. We can ask more questions.
Come on in.
Yeah, we have tons of deep questions. Have a nice day.